Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Linner. I'm the Political Communications Officer for the Public Service Alliance of Canada in the Prairie region. We're just going to get ourselves started right away here. So just a couple moments. So get yourself relaxed and ready, and we will be with you very shortly.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Marianne Hladun, and I'm the Regional Executive Vice President for PSAC Prairies. I want to thank you for taking the time for members across the region to join us tonight. I know your evening hours are precious time, so we will try to keep the webinar to 1 hour. Tonight, we're going to talk about primarily Treasury Board bargaining and the narrowing window that we have right now. We have a small window of opportunity in our bargaining with Treasury Board, and so we want to talk about what we can do together to get you a fair deal. After we're done hearing from our guest speaker, there will be an opportunity to ask questions about negotiations. So for those of you who maybe have not been on a webinar before, you will see probably on the right-hand side, a chat box. So if you're on your computer, you can go and put your questions into the chat box, into the question section, and we'll be able to go through the list that way. Or if you are listening on your phone and you're not able to go into the chat box, you can text any of your questions to Thomas Linner at 204-898-7002 and include your name and location in the text message with your question. Again, if you want to text your question in, 204-898-7002. Okay. We may not be able to get to all the questions tonight, and if we can't, there is an opportunity at the end to put your questions in and we can get back to you. But we will do our best to get through as many as we can tonight. Tonight, we have a few guests joining us. We will hear from Sister Magali Picard, who's the National Vice President for PSAC nationally. She will be giving us a presentation in a moment. We also have Celia Freytag, who is a research officer with the TC table, and we're just waiting for Sister Arliss Ibsen, who is a team member with the EB bargaining group. So we have a variety of people to be able to answer your questions. And really, this is about giving you an update as the teams are going back to the table at the end of April, and to explain why it's really important for us to do this at this point. So I won't keep you any longer. So I'd like to introduce our first guest. Sister Magali Picard was the Regional Executive Vice President for Quebec, and I didn't pull your bio down, Magali. So for a long, actually since I started, we started the same time. That's right,
so
June
true.
of 2012.
Yes.
And at the convention in May of 2018, she was elected as the National Vice President. And I'd like to welcome Sister Magali Picard.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Marianne. So hi, everyone. Thanks very much for taking the time to be on this webinar. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk with you and hear your questions on these telephone town halls. Friends, we've organized this webinar tonight because time is running out for the Trudeau government in our current round of bargaining with Treasury Board. I'm very proud of the work of our bargaining teams, who represent over 90,000 PSAC members at the table. They're working very hard on your behalf. And it's not an easy job, but after almost 10 months of government's delays, it's time for us to increase pressure on Trudeau. Since bargaining began, PSAC teams have presented reasonable proposals to improve work-life balance, reduce precarious contract work, close wage gaps with the private sector, and ensure fair economic increases. Yet, for most of that time, the government has repeatedly stalled and resorted to making insulting offers, such as the proposal in November that amounted to a 2-year wage freeze. It was a shocking insult to our hardworking membership. After some small positive steps at our talk in February, we were hopeful that the government would come to the negotiations in March ready to make more progress. Unfortunately, all we've got last month was a few more small steps. We've made it clear to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that his window to deliver on his commitment to respect public service workers are closing. Since coming into office, Trudeau committed to restoring the government's respect for the public service. Those are nice words, but reaching a fair contract before the federal election in October is the only way he can deliver on that promise to PSAC members. You PSAC members are still waiting to be paid properly under Phoenix. And you're still waiting after 3 years to be compensated for all the hardships you've endured because of these countless freight problems. You shouldn't also have to wait for the fair working condition you deserve. As I said, the window of opportunity to Prime Minister Trudeau to deliver on his commitment to support public service workers and that vital services you provided Canadians is closing. But we're willing to give him one more chance in April, and those dates are fast approaching. This is where you come in. The government needs to understand that they are running a high risk if they don't give PSAC members a fair deal before the election. That's why our top priority in the coming month is to ramp up mobilization and support from our membership to ensure every single member of parliament in Trudeau's government knows that their time to make good on their promises to public service workers is about to run out. Now, I will pass back to Marianne for your thoughts. Marianne, I want to hear your thoughts around it.
Thanks, Magali. So as Magali said, Trudeau's window is closing on his commitment that he made to federal public service workers. And that window is closing. And, there's been modest progress at the table, but that's a direct result of actions that our members have taken in the last few weeks and months. And I do want to mention one event in particular. So we have in the Prairies been front and center every time that we heard the Prime Minister was in town. We've caught him several times in Winnipeg. We've caught him in Edmonton. And the last time we caught him in Winnipeg, one of our members actually pulled out his letter from 2015, showed it to him, and looked him in the eye and said, "You're not doing what you said you were going to do." So we have used every opportunity that we can, and we've told them that they need to come to the table at the end of this month with a mandate. I want to thank everyone who has been taking part in these activities and supporting your bargaining team. It means so much to the team members. But we need to wrap that up. We need to do more actions in the coming days and weeks. And we need to make sure that this government understands that we're tired of waiting for a deal. And we're looking for all members to participate in those actions and join in where you can. I'd also urge you to get in touch with the bargaining team member. Obviously, we have 3 provinces, so they can't physically be at every meeting, but they can call in if you can do Skype, if you can do phone, and in some instances, we can get some team members out to your meetings. So we're more than happy to set that up for you. Excuse me. And now we will head into questions. And I do see that there is a number of questions in the chat box. I'll just repeat the number. If you are on the phone and don't have access to type your question in, you can text your question to 204-898-7002. Okay. So we are going to go to, so one of the questions, this question is from Patricia. I want to put a question into the queue for question time. Okay, I guess I didn't have to read that, sorry. With the latest report of the cost of living going up 2.3% in Manitoba, 1.9% countrywide, how much pressure is PSAC exerting on that aspect of bargaining? Wage stagnation is becoming a growing concern, and we are in a position to break that cycle, or we will be caught in it. Magali, do you want to respond to this one? I think Chris has had a strong message around this.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for Marianne. Well, Patricia, you are absolutely right. The pressure that we need to put on the government will depend on what our membership are ready to make. We're not ready to accept nothing under the cost of living. Our members at their retirement, the one who are receiving their pension, receive 2.2% January 1st, 2019. This is the cost of living recognized by the federal government. So it's absolutely impossible for us to accept something like that. Well, we need all of us to put pressure. That's why I'm saying I'm happy about your comments, because this is the way we are negotiating. This is one of the most important data we need when it's time to go at the table. What is the cost of living? No way we want to see our members walking behind that. So that's absolutely important. This is something we're talking every day with our membership. Chris and I are doing a tour. We were in Alberta last week, and we talk about that a lot. And I don't know to how many meetings we ask our members, would you be willing to accept 1.25, 1.5, 1.75? And I'm telling you, sister, nowhere, not one member said, yes, I agree to accept something like that. So that brings our job way more easier. But in the same time, we need you to say to this government, we won't agree with that. And if it has to be no, and if we need to go on strike after a PIC, a public interest commission, we're going to do it. But we need you to support our bargaining team. And if we want to make sure to raise those goals, to achieve the goals, we need our people to be there when it's time to organize mobilization. And Marianne will organize some mobilization in your region. So please be there. And I'm sure that altogether we can be 140,000 public servants ready to go on strike, because we've got also CRA, we've got some agencies, we've got parks, we've got tons of people in negotiation right now. So we've got a strong, strong power in front of this government, and no way we want to agree with something below the cost of living.
Thanks, Magali. There was also another question kind of along the same along the same vein about is the stall around wages, or is it around level changes and steps within pay? Basically, at the end of the day, from what the team members have said and what we understand, I mean, it's around the wages. 1.0% is not enough. There's been no discussions about, you know, level changes, because if all they have is 1% on the table, there's nothing else to discuss if they're not moving on that. So
absolutely,
okay.
This is exactly the situation, Marianne. Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, there we go. Hi, Arliss. We have Arliss Schudibson, who is a member of the EB bargaining team. And so, Arliss, I don't know if you want to say anything about the wage mandate and kind of what's been on the table. And, you know, what have you as a team member, what was your reaction when you saw 0.75 and then, you know, oh, we're so special, we gave you 1%? Oh, I think there we go.
Arliss, if you could please unmute your microphone at the top there and hit that microphone icon and make sure that it's green. So right at the top, there's a microphone and there's a camera. The one at the top where there's a microphone.
I don't see that she's wearing a microphone. Some headset.
Oh dear.
You're unmuted. Okay, you should be.
There you go.
Good. The word I used when I heard them give us 0.75 was gobsmacked. It was unbelievable, knowing how hard we work, to have our employer come to us and tell us they value our service, they value our work, and then offer us that. It was a slap in the face. So that would be the only comment I could give you. There would not be anything positive to say about it.
Thanks, Arliss. Okay, so we've got all kinds of questions coming in. So the next question, with the federal election coming soon, if the Liberals get booted out and we have no contract, does it all start over again with the new government? Does this mean that no past 4-year commitments? No past. I think the question is, will we lose anything? So my understanding, and I will look to Celia, who's with the TC table, or Magali, if there's anything else. So if there is a new government and we have not concluded a collective agreement, which is not our intention, but if that happens, whatever we've signed off stays on the table. So we wouldn't go back to square one with bargaining as long as both sides have signed off. But it's in everyone's best interest to get a collective agreement, at least get a tentative agreement before the writ is dropped for the federal election, because at that point, there really is no government. The government is disbanded until such time as after the election. So what we're really trying to do is ensure that at this round of bargaining in April, if they do come with a serious mandate and we are able to get a tentative agreement, and we've told them we will stay there as long as we have to if we're making progress, that we want to get that done before the writ is dropped and the government is dissolved. Celia, did you have something else to add?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. The only thing I would add is that there will be a delay because they will not have a mandate, and we don't know how long it would take them to get such a mandate. So it's definitely in our best interest to push now and get something on the table, get as much as we can on the table and get a commitment.
Thank you, Marianne. Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, you all know that our employer is also the legislator. So it's always a danger to see a change in the government, especially, and I'm talking now to those who were working under the Conservative between 2005 and 2015. You all know what we faced during those 10 years of hell. So that's really stressful. That's why we need to put the pressure right now. That's why in 2 weeks, when our team's going to be back at the negotiation table, we need to make enough pressure on the government to make sure that they arrive at the table with some real improvement. We don't want to see ourselves facing a Conservative government after October, because it's true. I'm not afraid that we're going to lose everything because it's a process that it's under a legislation. But we also know that the Conservative were ready to remove our sick days from our collective agreement just before the last election. That's still there, and that's still something that we are worried about. So I'm telling you, the goal and the reason why we are doing this leaders tour, those reason why we are doing those webinars, is to make sure that you understand how much we need your help. We need your help to make sure that our people, like Arliss, will go back at the table to negotiate at the end of this month, and that the government will have enough. The government Trudeau will have enough of pressure to make sure they will understand that they need to arrive there with a real mandate, some really reasonable offer, to make sure that they won't see our 140,000 people everywhere during the next federal campaign in a few months. So the answer is there's nothing we can guarantee to our people when we are negotiating with the legislator. It's not the question of being alarmist. The truth is, working with the Conservative, we've lost our severance pay. It was some really hard time. And we're not in a period really, I would say, exciting for us to help you to make some decision for the next election. So we need to do everything we can to make sure that we reach a deal at the end of this month. But in the same time, it's not true we're going to agree with something under the cost of living, something that is not respectful for you, our members.
Thanks, Magali. So I did get a question to just quickly explain the Pic process. So when either side believes that everything has been discussed and there's no chance of making any progress, you declare impasse. Now, we had done that in December and the government challenged it and said, no, we're not done talking. And the Labor Board agreed with them. So we went back to the table. When we believe, we've had all the discussion and basically we've hit the wall, we declare impasse and we ask the board to establish, we call it a PIC. So it's a public interest commission. We pick one person, the employer picks one person, and we agree on a chairperson. That could take a month or two to get that done. Then both sides make a presentation to the PIC, and basically saying what we believe should be in the tentative agreement and what our arguments are. Then the three-person PIC will issue a report. Supposed to be within 30 days, but I don't think any of us have seen a report come out in 30 days. There's usually a bit of an extension. Once the PIC report comes out, unfortunately, it's not binding. And so sometimes that will start a mediation process, or it will start, us going back to the bargaining table, or at that point, that is when we can do a strike vote. So we cannot do a strike vote until that process is completed. I know people have said, will the president put us on strike? Well, as much as I like the president, he doesn't have that power, and neither does Magali. Nobody has that power. Only the national president can authorize a strike vote where members get to vote. And so that will be a decision of all the members within the bargaining units. So that's a bit of the Pic process. There was, hang on, there was another question. Oh, hang on. I've got a question on Thomas's phone. Okay, so D&D currently works a 40-hour work week with an additional half-hour lunch break, while every other classification is working 37.5-hour work week. The SV bargaining team identified this point and brought it to the table. Has there been any headway on this point? So I don't believe that there has been any significant headway on that. It has been an issue at all tables where the SVs have to work a 40-hour work week. And there does, I believe the catchphrase for the employer this time is, we have no appetite for it. And the team members were going to get t-shirts made saying, we have no appetite for it. I know it was a priority of the SV table that they want to get to a 37.5-hour work week with no reduction in wages. And there has been no appetite from the government to go down that road. Does anybody have any other information on that? No? Okay.
You said everything. It's exactly the same.
Okay. Are there measures that could be put in place with the negotiated agreement to ensure that we actually get the negotiated amount and not get rolled back to a lower amount? I think, Magali, you kind of answered that a little bit. Do you want to?
Well, you can go, Marianne, because it's exactly what I said earlier. So we are looking really to the wage increase. We said it before we start the negotiation. This is our top priority. This is what our members are looking for, and this is what we're doing. And our list can confirm that. This is the same at every table within Treasury Board bargaining team. So this is what we are looking. We don't see anywhere demand regarding bonus or something like that. We're looking for wage increase all across the board.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. So there is a couple of questions that kind of relate to Phoenix as well, which is Magali's portfolio. So one of the questions is, we've had 5 people retire in the past 4 years, and none have been able to get their severance, but they're told they will not get it for many more years. It is a Phoenix issue, but they can't get more people into the pods to assist. So I know that, you know, we're talking about Phoenix at other tables, but it also is part of the bargaining process. So maybe I'll let you just give a little bit of an update around that.
Thank you, Marianne. Well, I'm going to start by saying that it's true that we are negotiating now with Treasury Board some compensations, damages regarding all the hardship you're going through since 2016. And the way we are negotiating that, it's completely something separate than your normal collective agreement when we're talking about the table PA, SV, EB, TC. This is not where we negotiate that. It's at another table. And the way we are doing it now, we are negotiating like 3 tier. Tier 1 will be a compensation for the entire workers, entire people who are under the Phoenix pay system. Even the 18% of those who were not hit by Phoenix since 2016. And why? The reason why we negotiate for everyone, because I cannot tell you how many of you told us in the last 3 years that you refuse to do some overtime, acting, any kind of benefits that you can use within your collective agreement, but you're so afraid to make some change, you decided to not proceed with those benefits and say, no, I'm not going to do any acting. I'm not going to move to another department closer to my home because I'm so afraid to change something in my pay file and starts to have some problem. So I don't want to take any chance. Doesn't make sense. Just the stress every payday to know, am I going to be paid or not? So this is absolutely abnormal. So this is why we are negotiating now. The tier 1 will be for the entire membership. All the one who are under the Phoenix-based system will be compensated by the federal government. The tier 2, this is the one that we talk the out of pocket. This is already in place. There's probably a form in your website, Marianne. If not, it's under our website nationally, also under the one of Treasury Board. There's a form. If you had to pay your rent, your car, your grocery, whatever, with your line of credit, with your credit card, if you had needed to cash some RRSPs, you can claim right now all those fees through this process with the form online to Treasury Board. And hopefully they don't use Phoenix for the reimbursement. So it's really fast. You can receive your payment really fast. And I'm telling you, 95% of the demand they received so far have been granted. So please do it if you didn't do it so far. And the tier 3 will be the most serious, the most difficult cases. The one who lost their house, the one who took some leave without pay because they were not able to continue to deal with Phoenix. So it's going to be the last tier. And for this tier, we also negotiate now that there's going to be a special board, because if we don't agree with the employer, if they decided there should be a tier 1 or 2, and we think that you should be a tier 3, so there's going to be a special board just for Phoenix issues, where it's not going to take years like we're used with the Treasury Board when we think about our classification grievance, all the other kind of grievance. It's going to be a really shorter process that we are negotiating now. So this is something that we are doing. Is it going as fast as we would like to? Absolutely not. But at least I can tell you that when I'm talking about those 3 tiers, that's something that we jointly agree, so that everyone will be compensated. This is really important. I heard also, Marianne, within the question, that some of their colleagues went to their retirements and still wait for their severance pay that they decided years ago to put aside. Make sure to tell those people to communicate with us. Marianne should be the one who received those names. Ask them to send to Marianne their name, PRI, and since when they are at their retirement, and Marianne will forward them to me, because we've got an agreement to be able to escalate some special cases, and those cases are exactly the one that we can bring. And I'm telling you, so far, all the one I receive, and there's tons of those, we were able to make sure that within 10 days they receive their severance pay. So we need to know those cases, because even when you go to your retirement, we still help and we still represent our members after their time and after that they leave the federal government.
Thanks, Magali. Yeah, if there is anyone, we've said this, in every communication tool that we can. If you know someone who has not gotten a paycheck, please make sure that they contact their local and go through the component. Most of the components, they have connections to be able to get emergency pay and get that sorted out. But by all means, contact us. No one should be going more than a day or 2 without any pay at this point. And if it's a matter of severance pay, if they're owed pay after they leave, and honestly, and I didn't ask Magali about this, if you have students who didn't get paid, we will help them, because I've heard too many cases where students or summer employees, and we're going into that season again, we have worked really hard to try to make sure that people have those protections. So please let us know. You can go onto the website and put that in, or my contact information will be up at the end, and feel free to send me an email. Okay. Okie dokie.
Marianne, when you're looking at the next question, just to say also to our people who are listening to us tonight, that we finally win our battle against the government to make sure that our people who receive an overpayment, or people who receive some advance payment because they didn't receive their paycheck, don't need anymore to reimburse the gross amount of those payments.
Yes.
This is really important. So I know that some of our people said that they didn't ask for advance payment because when it was time to reimburse, they have to reimburse most of the time 30 and 40% more than they asked because of the gross amount. So at least now you need to know that if you need an advance because you didn't receive your paycheck and you ask for 1,500, you will need to reimburse 1,500, and no, not 1,500 plus the gross amount, which sometimes was at 2,300 or something like that. So took time, took 3 years, but we finally win this battle. So make sure that do not hesitate to ask your employer for an advance payment if you don't receive your paycheck correctly.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to, there is a question from Audrey about how does the new classifications published in the Gazette affect the negotiations? So for the PA group, which is the administration and support group, it's been in the contract a couple of times, and I think Magali was on the team when it actually started. There was a commitment to establish, basically come up with a new classification system that respects job duties and actually will ensure pay equity moving forward. The government, we've gone through several different types of classification systems, but we've never been able to actually come up with one. So we had negotiated an MOU saying that they will come to the table and have discussions on a new classification system, OGS. So organizational group structure. And so we had been having a lot of discussions with the government, with Treasury Board around classifications, and then it kind of stopped. And there wasn't much happening at the time. And I'll be honest, I think we were all taken aback when suddenly classification standards showed up in the Gazette. Those were not negotiated with us. We are looking at some of our different recourse because it was supposed to be negotiated. That was what the committee was for, but they just went ahead and did it. We cannot, that's the first step, is to come up with the classification standards. And because positions may change, titles will change, then we have to go to the bargaining table and actually negotiate not just pay raises, but actually the pay scales for each of those positions. We're trying to make sure that that would be ready for this round of bargaining, but obviously it wasn't. So it will not affect this round of bargaining, but it will, once this classification standard is done and members and employees get updated job descriptions, then in the next round of bargaining, or we may have to start and do an opener to have that discussion. So Magali, anything you wanted to add?
Well, no, you describe it perfectly, Marianne. The only thing I can say, so for the one who are maybe scared to know, can I see a decrease in my paycheck? Well, the answer is no. You've got a protection. So I would be surprised. This is not the intention of the new classification system. But if by any chances, if we see one of the, I would say a CR3, and the salary in the new classification will be under what you already receive, we call that a green circle. So all your conditions are protected till the day you go to your retirement, including the wage increasement.
Yeah. Okay, before we move on, I'm going to go to, there's a follow-up to your Phoenix comments. So what happens if you paid back an overpayment in 2016 for gross pay? How do you get reimbursed for the difference to just the net?
Well, that's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. I should have explained that. There's no procedure. There's no way you can ask the employer to reimburse you the gross. Why? because you probably receive a T4 showing the fact that at the end of the year, you paid too much of income for those payments. And it's look like with when you did your assessment, tax assessment, you've been reimbursed by the CRA. This is the explanation we receive. So just imagine if the employer would have committed to reimburse those gross amount that you paid back 3 years ago, means that they will also need to reissue you a new T4 showing that you didn't pay, in fact, those gross payment, and you would have to do back your income of 2016, which doesn't make any sense at all. So we talked with some actuaries, we verified everything, and it's obvious that what's been paid has been paid, should have been all like balance when you did your income, but starting now, the one who are still has to pay back or received overpayment won't have to do it in the future. But the one who has been reimbursed, even the one who has been reimbursed in 2018, you should have a T4 showing that you paid those amounts. And when you do your income, it's supposed to be all balanced. That's the information we receive from the accountant, the actuaries. We made those verifications to make sure that it was clear for everyone. And this is the answer we received.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I've got another question by text. I'm not sure who it came from other than Manitoba. Good question. How do you get Trudeau to move and keep his word and bargain fairly? How do we change? So each government only traditionally handles one contract. Well, because they're 3 or 4 years. So yes, it's usually negotiated once through a government's mandate. How do we change that so we're not left waiting for the next government? Why are we as workers always behind in working in expired contracts? So I'll do that first. I don't know, Magali, you want to?
Oh, yes,
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I know you want that one. I know you want that one.
You know me, we're working well together. Well, brother, I love your question. And this is exactly what Chris and I talk as soon as we started our mandate in May 2019. We don't agree with the fact that we finished negotiating a collective agreement when it's time to start the new one. That doesn't make sense at all. This is something we want to change. That's why we asked for an impasse months ago. We knew at that time that it would be surprising that the board would accept with our demand, but it was to show to the government that we don't want to wait anymore. Enough is enough. We want to negotiate on time. We want to see our people receiving their wage increase when they are working, not when they are at their retirement or 3 years after. So this is our first intention. The way we can do that, well, it's exactly what we're doing now, to make sure that we talk about those negotiations all across the board, to make sure that all across the countries our people knows that we are under negotiation, that they are ready to fight, are ready to sign the petition. We will never ask our people to do something illegal who can put you in trouble. But at the same time, we need to change our culture. We were not, you know what, the last time we had the general strike within PSAC, it's in 1991. Do I want to see a strike? Well, if we need to do it, we're going to do it. But there's many ways to put pressure on the government before arriving there. And this is what we're trying to do now with you. So this is why it's so important that when we ask for your support and your help, please just take 5-10 minutes of your time. Go online. You're going to see there's a lot now going on. Go on PSAC's Facebook. Also look at what's going on in your region. We can do that. And I'm telling you, so far, we're pretty good. If you just look at the last campaign with Here for Canada, not one of the MP in this country didn't contact us to say, oh my God, PSAC is changing the tone. You're now going on TV. There's a lot of reaction around what we're doing. And also, for one of the, I have to admit it, we're not usually so popular within the public because they looked at us and all the previous government were so good to tell the citizen that we are so privileged, our big pension plan and our big benefits. But with what's going on with Phoenix, we've got the population with us. People cannot believe what's going on. And the government should know that even if you continue to go to work every day, day in and day out since 3 years, without knowing if you're going to be paid or not being paid, That does not mean that we will continue to endure what they're trying to do with us. So they need to take us really more seriously. We are doing lobby. Our people are really beautiful. We did a big demo in Ottawa, February 28th, the third anniversary of Phoenix. We closed downtown Ottawa for I don't know how many blocks. It was beautiful. We were close to 1,000 members, between 700 and 1,000 members, which been years that we saw that in Ottawa, years and years and years. So we change our tone. They know that we're ready to fight. And I'm telling you right now, we're going to do everything we can to make them understand before the end of this month. And if they don't take us seriously, they won't be happy with what they're going to see during the next campaign, which is coming in a few weeks.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to, there was a follow-up to that question, and it was around strike pay and how strikes work. So just to clarify, strike pay within the Prairies is $75 per day to a maximum of $375 a week. And the other question was, like, how big is our strike fund? And I think it's Magali is also in charge of finance. So
that's my other portfolio. So I don't know why Phoenix and finance, it shouldn't be together, but anyway, yes, it's all the same. No, the truth is we're pretty healthy. Don't worry with the pension plan. We did our job. The previous leadership did it. I can tell you that when it was time to have a special levy for the pension plan years ago, put it in place, you paid for that. Now there's no more special levy, but we have a significant amount of money in the bank, big enough to keep us and to bring us in a full strike, a legal strike all across the board. So don't worry around it. Your money is there, and $75 a day, which is pretty good when you compare with all the other union. It's a pretty respectful amount, and as you probably already know, it's the money that you don't need. It's tax free, so that's $75 net in your pocket. So we're ready to support our people if we need to go in a strike. Absolutely.
Perfect. Another question. This one is for Arliss. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about the support that you've gotten as a bargaining team member and really what it means to the bargaining team?
Yep.
Oop, there we go.
There we go. The support from the members is incredible. I have some things sitting here on the table with me tonight. This is just the small version, but we get these all the time, and they're signed with the names of our members, and there's all sorts of comments on them. We had a group from Lethbridge and in February send us a huge big Valentine, and they all signed it, and then a picture. It's incredible to get that. You're sitting across from the members of the Treasury Board, and you know deep down that you're not really appreciated by them. They don't understand our jobs. They have no idea. And they sit in the comfort of Ottawa. I sit in the comfort of a prison. Other people sit in the comfort of an agriculture complex. So when we get these messages, it actually makes me want to giggle, because we post them behind us. So we don't get to see them. But when those Treasury Board members walk in, that's what they see. These hanging on the wall, cheering us on. And they realize, one of the negotiators on the Treasury Board sitting across from us made a comment, I can't remember exactly, but to the effect that, wow, it must be nice. Yeah, we have support. They don't have anything. Maybe they got a picture of their wife and their kids in their wallet, but that's about it. We've got thousands of people backing us, and it's so important to us, and it's such an encouragement. So anything that you can, as our members and our friends and colleagues, anything you can do to support us, we would appreciate it beyond measure. Because I'm sure in the next couple of weeks when we go down again, we're going to need that. It helps us strengthen our spine and stand up to those guys. So it's incredibly important. And thank you so much for what you've already done.
Thanks, Arliss. I don't think anybody can say anything else after that. And Magali and I have both been on bargaining tables as team members, so completely agree with everything that you've said. So another question. The old PA contract expired June 2018. What expiry date are we looking at for this round? That's always up for negotiation. So our initial wage mandate was for 3 years. They came back with 4 years. Traditionally, we don't like to go beyond 4 because the economy changes. So you don't want to be stuck into a contract, but honestly, that's still up for negotiation at this point. Okay. There was a question about if there was a strike, $750 would not cover my rent. Does the union cover hardship if there was a strike? So one thing I will tell you is that many locals have very healthy strike funds because we have not been on strike for Treasury Board members since 1991. So that's something that you would have to check with your local on. There will be more information if we're going down that road, but we do have a regional hardship fund. But it is basically interest-free loans to ensure that you can meet your minimum requirements, and it's all done very confidentially. But you do have to provide financial information. So that is available. If we are in that situation, we will be circulating that. But you should check with your local as well, because many locals will top up above the $75, and that's also tax-free. Okay. Okay, how does the local strike fund affect the amount of strike pay? Whatever a local chooses to do, you get to do. We simply do the $75 per day for a 4-hour picketing shift, and whatever locals do is completely their choice. Okay. I'm seeing some questions about Phoenix, and what I'm going to say to some of these questions, if we don't get to them, if you can send me an email, and I'll put my contact information up later, because it's more specific, very specific questions. But I will. Okay, this one's for you, Magali. As the AEC officer for the FB unit, which is the Border Services, can you indicate why the FB team is not participating in the all teams meetings?
Well, that's a good question, but in the same times, the reality of the FBs is pretty different than all the other tables, and we didn't start at the same time also. So we started after all the other table within Treasury Board. And like you probably know, we just finished a negotiation, which was a really good one, by the way, for the FBs. So it's true that we're not at the same. You need to know now that since we asked for the impasse with a few months ago, and that the employer challenged our demand, they also decided there's no more table, common issues table. So we don't have one now between PAS, VE, BTC. So independently, at the time that we start negotiation with FB, we don't have those common issues table right now. Is it something that we will try to renegotiate in the future? Absolutely. But you need to know that even if we were exactly at the same time of the other tables, there's none actually between Treasury Board and PSAC.
Okay, so just to clarify, the next round of bargaining is the last week of April. The teams will be meeting on April 29th, Monday, April 29th, and we will be back at the table with the employer on Tuesday, April 30th. And so that's, we'll have an indication if they're actually serious, because I will tell you that MPs from coast to coast to coast, and we have lobbied MPs in this region. Liberals have seen us over and over and over again. And our message to them was continually, you better tell your people to give us a mandate, or coming up in the next election, and I should say I said this to Trudeau directly eye to eye, I said, it's your choice. Either we get an agreement in April and we have a tentative agreement and we work towards ratifying it, or if we don't have an agreement and we go into a federal election, we will have no choice but to represent our members and challenge every single candidate, be it Liberal or Conservative or NDP, at every single venue, every single event. They will know about our issues. We would rather focus on making sure that, honestly, we don't have a Conservative government, again, because we saw what Stephen Harper and Tony Clement did to us. So it is in their court to come to the table with an agreement. And so for any of you, particularly if you have a Liberal MP and you have not contacted them, now is the time. They are home for the next 2 weeks. They will be back in Ottawa the week that we start bargaining. And I will tell you, they don't know anything about what's going on unless we tell them. It's not anything that's on their radar. It's all new information to them if they've not met with one of our members. And when you put it in terms of, okay, do you want to see us at every one of your election events, or do you want a deal? And I can tell you, they're all going back to Ottawa telling Treasury Board, you better give them a deal. So we need to keep pushing that for the next 2 weeks. So those are the dates. Yeah, if there is a strike, how will we be impacted by Phoenix? Well, we wouldn't get paid. So really no different. Strike pay that you would receive, you receive from PSAC, and I can guarantee you, you will get your check every week. What happens after that on the employer side? Again, it hopefully the system could, we don't know. I'll be honest, we don't know whether the system will just show you as lost, leave without pay. But strike pay itself is paid from PSAC, and each regional office will issue those checks. Essential services. So the other piece that we didn't mention is that before we can do a strike vote, we have to have essential services done. And this is what some of us in the old days called the designation process, where you are designated as essential. So basically, if there's a strike, too bad, you got to go to work. Right now, every component is working with the departments to redo the essential services, because I will say the Liberal government reversed the changes that Tony Clement put in. So now, if we as a union do not agree with what the employer is saying on a designation, we can go to the Labor Board and ask them to make the decision. That was taken away by Tony Clement, but that's now back. So we're working through that process. We cannot take a strike vote until essential services is concluded. So it is a priority for our folks in Ottawa. It's a priority for all of the components. And so you may not have seen anything yet, but they are currently working on it. And the components, each one is different. They're working directly with the departments because they know best what jobs are essential. Okay. Okay. Can we get some action going in Winnipeg for members to hit the offices? Well, brother, we have hit every single one of them over the last 3 weeks, but I believe there is possibly something might be happening next week. So do me a favor, send me an email after, and we'll make sure that you're clued into that.
Marianne, I think your answer should be good for all the one who wants to participate.
Absolutely. Huh? Absolutely.
We're counting on you.
Yes. Okay. I do want to go back to a question. There was a question that maybe Celia might be able to answer, and if not, we will have to. There we go. So is there a plan to add clarification of leave for resource force service? The various references contradict themselves when it comes to leave with pay and leave without pay. And so this is regarding years of service in the reserves. So Celia, do you have any information on how that's been going at the table? And if not, we may have to get the members' information and we can get back to you directly.
Hi, please do get the information. I would prefer to write them a note and make sure that it is correct, and maybe we can post it somewhere. Would that work?
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so Brother Chad, if you can send me an email, the information's up on the screen, and we will make sure to get back to you and share that information. There was a few other questions about specific departments and issues kind of outside of bargaining. I'll maybe communicate with the members on that one-on-one after, but I want to go to a question from Brother Kevin, who I happen to know is a UTE local president. Treasury Board seems to be the common link involved when we see long and protracted contract negotiations for all components under PSAC. Has there been any serious consideration been made to launch a campaign to remove Treasury Board from this process and allow the UTE bargaining team the opportunity to negotiate directly with the employer? So Kevin, we would love that because we always looked in envy at the bargaining team for CRA because you could go to the table and in 2 weeks get a deal. In fact, your bargaining team was actually able to negotiate a classification system well in advance of any other group. It was Tony Clement and the Conservative government who inserted Treasury Board into that negotiations and took the authority from the commissioner of CRA out and said, basically, you've got to have Treasury Board at the table. If they say you can't do it, you can't do it. And so I know this is something that your component has been very active on and absolutely something that I would encourage all CRA members, and I know it is an action that they're asking all members right now to do, to contact their MP and tell them that you want a collective agreement, and part of that is getting Treasury Board out of it. So are we ready to launch a campaign? I think we kind of already did. Okay. Anything to add, Magali?
No, the only thing I can say, Marianne, so I think the agency by itself would love to see Treasury Board walking out of their table. It was really successful before the decision of Tony Clements. So let's see what's going to happen. One thing is sure now, that's exactly what's going on. All the agency, you've got someone from Treasury Board who is sitting on every table, which is absolutely not in our favor. So yes, you're right. There's already a campaign, and we will continue to fight and make sure that we can come back to the time where everything was in the best interest, that I would say, of both parties.
Perfect. Another question, is the love letter that Trudeau sent us prior to the last election available somewhere on the PSAC site? I don't think so, but we can do that because she would like to send it to her Liberal MP asking him, what have you done for us lately? So absolutely, we can find that and put that up so you have it for reference. I'm also seeing a lot of questions around strike and strike action. Not that those are not important. We're not there yet. So while we want members to actually start thinking about it and being ready, if we're not getting anything more than 1%, we need to be ready for it. And the best way to avoid a strike is to prepare for one. And so we're putting that out there, but we have a ways to go before we would do a strike vote. And we will absolutely, there will be training, there will be webinars. We will make sure that all of your questions specifically to that are answered. And so it's not that I'm ignoring you on those, but at this point, we have an opportunity to put pressure for the last week in April, and hopefully that won't be necessary. But they also need to know, like Magali said, if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. We're not afraid to do it. And we will do everything to support folks on that. So I think we're coming up on the hour, or we are at the hour. I want to thank our special guests, Sister Magali, Sister Celia, and Sister Arliss for participating on the webinar this evening. You will see on the screen all of the contact information, our website, my email, our phone number, Facebook, Twitter. Please connect into all of that to get updated information. And I would really encourage you all to get a hold of your local area council. That is where a lot of the mobilization, a lot of the actions that we're doing, where they're having those discussions. So even if you don't live in Winnipeg or Calgary or Edmonton or Regina or Saskatoon or Lethbridge or Prince Albert, you can phone into those meetings, you can participate, you can plan actions in your community, and we will support you and do what we can. And we want to hear all of your ideas. But don't just give us ideas that you and your coworkers, your fellow members are prepared to do. And we will do everything we can to support you and to put pressure on this government. Final words, Magali?
Well, Marianne, I want to thank you, Marianne, for the fantastic job you're doing in your region. I know that the people tonight heard our demand, will be with you, and I can tell you that nationally we will do everything we can to make sure that the prairies, the workers of across this country will be respected by the government, and that we will reach a fair deal for all of us. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you to all of you.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. We will, if we didn't answer your question, we will get back to you. And thank you and have a good evening.